Guys, Anthony here from Speedworks Social, and one of the most common questions I get from people is asking about what is a typical budget and how do I set up my bidding for LinkedIn ads. A lot of people get to this section here, budgeting and schedule and bidding, and they're wondering what to put in here. On LinkedIn, there's a lot of different settings here that you can select between conversions, landing page clicks. What do I set my daily budget to? What do I set my bid to? Do I use automated bidding? There's a lot of questions people have when they get to this section, so I'm going to walk you through some best practices here and how to get the most out of your campaign. So first thing is some benchmarks that LinkedIn publishes. So if you're using LinkedIn, LinkedIn has premium traffic. They know they have high-level professionals that can be very valuable to target. So you're going to pay for those targeting options. The average CPC on LinkedIn in the US targeting middle management is about $8 to $10. If you're outside of the US, that tends to be significantly lower. And then if you're targeting entry-level people, this might be lower. And if you're targeting very high-level people, such as C-suite and owners, this is going to be even higher. These are some metrics that LinkedIn publishes. The average complete conversion rate over here for lead forms is about 10%. The average conversion rate for not lead forms is about 3%. So just showing that this gives you some average metrics that your average cost per lead can be in the $80 to $100 range. And then your average cost per conversion on a website, if someone's going to a website to fill in a form, that might be in the 230 to 290 range. So that's pretty high. So there's some things that we can do to make sure we're getting the best performance out of these campaigns, and some different optimizations you can make. So I'm going to walk through here some of those tips. But this is kind of just to set the stage of where you're probably going to land in terms of costs and why you want to make some decisions. So the first thing here is, the first thing to think about is kind of what's your starting budget going to be. And with those high CPCs, you're going to need a higher starting budget than, say, a platform like Facebook or Google just to test some stuff out. So we usually see that most people want to start with at least $3,000 to $5,000 in ad spend over a time range, and that can be over 1 month or it can be over a couple months. But when you set up your campaigns, you'll want to split test your audience targeting, you'll want to split test an offer, and then you'll want to split test ads. This is generally the amount of budget you'll need to cover those split tests, and then to drive any significant number of leads so that you can start evaluating, what's the quality of leads and make some optimizations based off that. Most companies are going to need to drive a large number of leads. Depending on what your conversion rates in your funnel look like, companies will need to drive a higher number of leads to then convert a certain number of those into customers for their business. So some things that we typically see is campaign types. First thing that you're going to select when you're setting up your campaign, you're going to select what type of campaign you're creating. And it's important to note that website conversions or website visits are more expensive than the lead generation objective or other types of campaign objectives. And the reason is because on LinkedIn, if you're taking people off the platform, that's kind of less valuable to them because that they have less of an opportunity to serve people ads in the future. Whereas if you use an objective like lead generation, people are staying on the platform, they're opening up the form there. And LinkedIn has more opportunities to engage them and have that user be active afterwards versus leaving the platform. So that user is more valuable to them, so they give you a little bit of a discount in those costs. And it's interesting to see. You can see here I have two identical audiences of the same size, same job titles here that I was mocking up to show this. That same size. Come down here to the bidding section. For website conversions campaign here, you can see that the average bid is $24.46, and then the range is from 18 to 37. But over here, when I go to lead generation using the same audience, if I scroll down here, the average bid is 20, and the range is 15 to 32. So in that difference there, that's about a 20 to 25% difference, which is pretty significant when you think about it. So if you're comparing campaign types, consider using lead forms because they're going to keep people on the platform. And then the other thing is when you're selecting your ad unit, sponsored content here in the news feed tends to be the most expensive because that's the highest quality ad unit. Everyone's bidding on that space, so that tends to be the most the most competitive and the most expensive. You can consider text ads and dynamic ads as smaller ads that show up in the sidebar of the news feed. Those tend to be cheaper clicks on the whole. So if you want to just start out by testing something, you can either test using the lead generation objective, or you can test using text ads and dynamic ads for a cheaper way to get started on LinkedIn. So some other things to think about is when you're starting your bidding. First is the bidding type that you want to select. Over here, the options they give you is maximum delivery, automated, or manual bidding enhanced. And the thing to know about this here is that automated bidding is actually a CPM bid, and you're kind of letting LinkedIn set your bids for you based on some of these averages here. And then manual bidding is where you're going to set the bids yourself and say, I'm not going to pay over a certain amount for clicks. And this is a per click bid. So this is a CPC bid, and then the top one here is a CPM bid. So it's important to know those differences. So there's a few. Most people, we recommend starting with a CPM bid. There is a case when an automated bid does work, and I'll talk about that in a second. But manual bidding, you want to pay for every click to start, and LinkedIn is showing you these ranges here, and these ranges include all the advertisers on the LinkedIn platform, including some very big companies. And very big companies have very big budgets, and the higher value that these prospects are to them, the more that they're going to pay to bid on them. So big companies with big budgets are spending a lot of money on LinkedIn, and that's where a lot of these high costs come in to. So, if you are a smaller advertiser and you don't have $1 million budget, you probably want to start and you want to optimize your costs at this section. So it's important to note, LinkedIn's gonna, if you select manual bidding, LinkedIn's gonna start by popping in what's the average bid here to give you that, but you can set this value. So usually I'll come in here and I'll start by finding what's the real low of this range. If you put in a low number here, LinkedIn's gonna tell you where the actual floor is for this audience. We see in the US, the actual floor tends to be between $3 to $6. And keep in mind, this is a bid, so you are entered into an auction. If your bid is too low, you just won't get any impressions. LinkedIn won't serve up your ad. So this bid does need to be high enough for you to get some traffic there. So it's interesting to see. I put in one. It tells me the actual floor is $5 here for website conversions. They say the range is 18, but the floor is really 520. And if I come over here to the lead generation one and I do the same thing, if I put in one, let's say the actual floor is 340. So there again, you can see that there's a significant difference between lead generation clicks versus website clicks. But where I'll usually start is I'll look at what the range is, and I'll usually take the low end of the range, and I'll usually look at the floor here, and also I'll evaluate my audience. If I know I have more of an entry level audience, I might start at like 10 to 20% over this floor. So if I have an entry-level audience, I might start with just a $4 bid here, because I know that these are going to be if it's an entry-level audience, those should be some cheaper clicks. But if I know I'm targeting middle managers or VPs or owners, then I'm probably going to start at about half of what this range is, of what this low end of this range is. So at 15, I might start at $7 or $8 per click. Usually I'll start probably at 7, I'll monitor the campaign as it runs to make optimizations. So know that you have a range here, and this is all advertisers on the LinkedIn platform, including some very big companies with very big budgets. That's why this range is so high. If you're a smaller advertiser and you're spending, in the thousands per month, then you're probably going to want to set manual bid and set a very low bid here to start. We also see that bidding low doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get worse traffic. We see lead quality tends to hold pretty well. That you're going to get just as good of people when you bid low. But know as your campaign runs, you might exhaust the cheapest people at some point. And then you'll need to eventually raise your bids over time. Other things you can do is refreshing creative, maybe expanding your audience, but starting with lower bids is going to make LinkedIn target the lowest hanging fruit, and then you might need to consider raising them slowly after that. So this is something you might need to come back to at different times. So back to my notes here, bidding, you want to start with CPC bidding, bid low to start, and then incrementally raise bids until you find your sweet spot. And the thing about this is on a day-by-day basis or over a certain time period, you can look at, are you spending your full budget every day? If you're not, then you might be bidding too low. And the sweet spot that we talk about here is when you're spending your full budget every day, but not over that. So if my budget is only $100 per day and I do bid $20, then in 5 clicks I'm going to exhaust my budget. But there's probably a lot of cheaper clicks out there. So if I'm spending 10 and then say I end up spending on average 80 to 90 per day, then maybe I do need to increase this by just a little bit. So keep an eye on, are you spending your full budget every day? If you're not, then you might need to raise your bid to reach that, because the low bid might be holding you back from getting impressions and serving. And then if you are spending your full budget early in the day, then you're probably overspending for those clicks, so you can then lower your bid from there. So that's how you do optimizations there. And usually I'll come in, and as a campaign launches, I'll come in maybe on a daily basis or throughout the periods of the day to see, is it on track to spend the full budget? Am I overspending? Is there optimizations that I can make? So next one here is getting a little more advanced. So there is times when automated bidding is useful, and you can see this little chart here that compares your click-through rate to your budget. So in most cases, you do want to start with a CPC bid because that's going to give you the most optimal costs on LinkedIn. Where if you have a low click-through rate, you want to be on CPC. If you have a low budget, you want to be on CPC. The thing is, when you go to a CPM bid, you're paying per impression. So if you have a very high CTR on your ads, whether your ads are just working really well or people are very interested in what you have to offer, if you bid by impression and if you have a high CTR rate, you're going to get more clicks for cheaper. Now, the reason why low budget and a high CTR is still CPC is because LinkedIn does have a wide range of people on the platform that can be very expensive. So if you have a low budget and you set automated, LinkedIn might go for one CEO and one manager level person, and you might still spend $50 in that click for that CEO, when if you have a very low budget, you want to be as efficient as possible. So if you have a high budget and you're trying to maximize your traffic, you're trying to maximize your clicks and you're trying to, reach as many people in your audience as possible, you do have a high CTR, then you're going to be, and it's going to be advantageous to use automated bidding for you, and I'll show you why. If you look at some of the math here, CPCs on LinkedIn tend to be between $8 to $12 per click, and average CPC range is about $100 for 1,000 impressions. So this line here, this first line here is if you have 1,000 impressions and $100 and say a 1% CTR, then you're paying maybe $1. You're paying about $10 per click here. But then if you have a $2, if you have a 2% CTR, then suddenly you're paying about $5 per click here. So we usually see around 0.8 is maybe when it starts to make more sense to do automated bidding, and again only for high budgets. And if you're over 1, that's again a time when you want to look at switching to automated bidding to get the most out of your campaigns. A couple other random notes is when you set your daily budget, LinkedIn can spend up to 20% higher, and it kind of makes sense if they're serving a whole bunch of impressions, maybe a couple people click at the same time, and then then you're going to get charged a little bit more. But keep an eye on your budget, and if it's a problem, then maybe have your budget be about 20% lower. But we don't usually see it's an issue. You just know that some days you might be 20% over that budget. Then also coming down here on a per click basis, this enhanced part here, you can see that they say they can bid actually 45% higher than what you set here. So on a daily basis, another thing that you can do is keep an eye on what is my actual CPCs that I'm paying. So if I'm bidding here $6 and I can see that my actual CPC is actually $6.94, this is LinkedIn using that enhanced bidding to bid slightly over what I am bidding. And then if I can see that, if I see if my bid's $6 and we're consistently getting almost $7 per click, that means LinkedIn's kind of stretching or having to stretch to go to get impressions and to get clicks. So something to keep an eye on is if you're not spending your full budget every day and you see your average CPCs are above your bid, you can see that LinkedIn's stretching to reach people and to spend your budget. So that's an indicator of when you need to increase your CPCs, increase your bid. And then again, if you see that your average CPCs are actually significantly lower than when you're bidding and you are reaching your budget every day, then that's an opportunity to decrease your bid and be more efficient with your clicks and just go after those cheaper clicks there. So that's kind of a lot of info about setting up your bidding and budgeting on LinkedIn ads. My name is Anthony from Speedworks Social. If you need any help with your LinkedIn ads campaigns, you can find us at speedworksocial.com and schedule a call to talk further about your campaigns. Thanks.